And we're live. Welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes Podcast, Week 13 edition, brought to you by RotoGrinders and Run Pure Sports collaboration. I'm here with my two boys. Big week for us. It's going to be. I can already feel it. But we're here with Bobby Gomes at DFS, at Bobby Gomes DFS. Bobby Gomes, $1 million winner, football savant, and of course, JSU Rab, the guy who Zumba instructor, gym owner, entrepreneur, multi-millionaire, guys binked so many tournaments. So we're back for week 13 edition. How are we doing? How'd you guys do last week? What's going on, boys?
JSU, you want to go first?
Get in there, Bob.
I feel like you've been doing shows. You're ready to go. You had four shows yesterday.
I too, but we move through. Some days you got to do what you got to do. Some days you got 3 shows, 2 shows, 1 show. But we're busy. Tons of content we're turning. If you haven't checked us out, runpuresports.com. Get over there, check us out. Do a lot of the content for NBA, NFL. Got a bunch of stuff, so make sure you guys go over there, check it out. But last week, faded Garrett Wilson, which didn't feel great. The guy just crushed. That one touchdown, the second touchdown he had was just absolutely dirty.
The dude fell down.
The safety was lying on the ground with a broken ankle or foot.
He still would have had a 40. He would have had a 40-yard reception instead of. Yeah. He got a touchdown instead. But
it was still nasty. He juked the other one out of his shoes and ran by another guy. It was still a sick move.
Let me ask you this: did you get off it because of the weather, right? Like the supposed weather, or no? Did that?
So I got off it at the projected ownership. I was 30% Garrett Wilson. I just can't stomach it. Forget about the weather. I just couldn't stomach it. And listen, if I knew it was going to be 13, 14%, I probably would have played him, but that's DFS. In the end, I think the Michael Carter kind of later news with James Robinson getting inactivated,
dude, that fucked me so bad.
I think everyone just moved some of their Garrett Wilson shares to Michael Carter because they said it's a monsoon or the weather's not great. I don't want to have too many Jets, right, Kirkwood? Because no one was really lining up.
Yeah. You feel better with one Jet, and so you had to make.
Yeah. So I think what happened was
we all fell for the same stupid narrative.
Yeah, it split the ownership, I think, of Garrett Wilson. I think he was going to be 30%. But because of that and Michael Carter coming in, people were like, listen, I'm not playing 2 or 3 Jets. I'm playing
I was in the Blitz Discord, and Cardi's like, he's a must play. You have to have Michael Carter. I just bought the hype. I was like, all right, and then the writing was on the wall from the very beginning that this was a running back committee, right?
I'll say it too, Kirkwood, because I do the Up to Lock show. So that news hit, and I was pretty much getting on the show to do it. And I said to everyone, I go, listen, I'll say this, I faded Garrett Wilson, so that call was wrong. But one call I did have, which was on the show, was I still wasn't really that high on Michael Carter. I thought he was in play, but I wasn't jamming him in, and I still had other running backs over him. Because of what you said. They said that Zonovan Knight was going to be his backup. They had Ty Johnson still there. They play 3 running backs. So even though James Robinson was inactive, I was still wait a second. They already said this Knight kid is going to be the backup. There's still 3 running backs there. Michael Carter's a fine play, but I don't see him as a lock like I see Rachaad White. I thought Jeff Wilson was still a better play. Obviously, you can say what you will about those guys, and Michael Carter got injured. So we got to take all those things into account. But I didn't see lock button Michael Carter, and I think
Michael Carter was a bust. That injury is baloney. It didn't matter. The writing was already on the wall. He was barely getting any of the touches.
Yeah, but could he have gotten 10 or 12 points and been
he could. It's possible.
Yeah, he could have.
But he wasn't smashing. He wasn't going to smash, that's for sure. That screwed me up. So listen to me. So I had I changed my Yahoo and I spent very little time. So I sat there with the two worst freaking running backs on Yahoo. I like a fish just because he was so cheap. I played Latavius, old man Latavius, and Michael Carter. So it was just brutal. But I also switched my main DraftKings. So I made like $2,000 on DraftKings out of like 11,000 worth of entries. I got like 13K back. 4 out of my 5 lineups. I had 5 lineups, 4 out of them cashed. I changed my main lineup to Michael Carter. I took out Garrett Wilson. I took out I put in Michael Carter, just like you said, and I felt like the biggest fish. So that lineup had 8K on it, and just dusted. And I swapped off the nuts. So I was all in on the Herbert stacks. So I was telling you with James Conner, which was great. And I on Sunday morning, I got on Zay Jones, and I touted Zay Jones pretty heavily on Grinders Live in the show that Bobby and I did.
Yeah, that was a really good call, actually.
And he was like 1%, and he was the key. So I ended up making money and making up, but I changed like that whole. I would have smashed. But
that's Kirkwood. You saying exactly what I think a ton of people in the industry.
Of course,
did.
It was the steam.
So like, it wasn't just you. There was sharp people. You can feel like a fish all you want, but a lot of sharp people, they won't admit it, but they did the same fucking thing that you did, and you just got burned by it. Like,
and you know what I did the week before?
Though
I did Kenyon Drake the week before that too. So I
seen a tweet.
The news can really trip you up in NFL because I'll say it. Everyone, see, this is the problem. It's the mindset of DFS because all of us also probably, or a lot of us, play NBA. Yeah. And so NBA, in part, almost clouds our judgment when it comes to these injuries. And I'll take it real quick, but I also do all the up to lock shows for NBA. And NBA injury news is completely different than NFL injury news. Like, completely different. You have in NFL, there's very little that can like actually just jump someone in outside of like a stud, like a Zeke who gets hurt, and they have this guy like Tony Pollard waiting in the wings. You know what I mean? Like, that's where you're like, okay, Tony Pollard, like, load the boat. But in NBA, it's different. Like when a star's out, there's like 4 dudes in play, and we just jam it. Like at the Atlanta last night. If you played Friday night DFS. Right? Trae Young gets ruled out. I mean, the Atlanta plays were just so good. Like, I had 3 to 4 Atlanta guys on every single team I played.
I had my boy AJ Griffin.
Yeah, I had him in my core. I had Jalen Johnson in my core. All these guys, they were just smash plays. But NFL is not the same. You don't just jam teams because one dude's out, right? Like, it's different. But
especially when you're jamming into a committee.
Yeah,
and
I think
also
everyone's judgment.
The gap in a strong play is much smaller than like from a. So it's like we should just hang on to our older plays that are going to be lower owned now.
Yeah,
but again, none of us thought that it would have affected the Garrett Wilson ownership like it did, and that's where we were all wrong. Like, even I didn't think that.
And I'm sick. I'm sick. I'm sick to like that. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm pushing almost 10 years in DFS, right? And I still don't know what to do with weather. You know, it's like I still get screwed up in my head. Like
don't change your main thoughts because of weather ever.
I think it's just like
unless it's just like a storm like you've never seen. Look at the Jets game. The problem was they had no fight on the other end. That was the issue, but Garrett Wilson, Mike White, those stats would have went even more crazy if the Bears could score, right? They couldn't. Imagine if Justin Fields was playing in that game healthy, right? And there was actually some pushback. That game might have shot out crazy even in the monsoon. Yeah. You don't know.
How'd you do, Bobby?
I had a good week in single entry. I kind of luck boxed the Foster Moreau touchdown there at the end. But MME, like I'm in the same boat as you guys. I made the same mistake. Like, I went right to Carter. Lost my Garrett Wilson. My girlfriend's uncle, he jumped on DK last week. He's, send me some teams. Like, you got to play these guys. I just never updated him about the Carter news. He had Garrett Wilson.
And then he's like, oh, thanks. How much you winning? How much you winning?
Yeah,
look at us.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's
shit.
that's exactly what happened.
I've done the exact same thing to friends who like they just text me at like 11:30, and I'm like, I just give them a screenshot of like of my lineup plays, and then I'm like, just build off of that.
They don't understand.
And then
like,
the thing is mine changes, and then
Yeah.
mine changes at 11 or at 12:45, and I'm screwed. And then
is there something to be said though, like if you're building multiple teams, to just have a team that you're just like, I'm not touching no matter what? Like, so these are my thoughts on Friday or Saturday, and I'm just not changing them for this team specifically. I can change them on other teams, but I don't know.
I had a buddy. He works over at the airport near in Eastie near Kirky, and he made a Mike White team, and he works nights. He fell asleep, and he like right before he got there in the morning, he fell asleep at 6. He like put his lineup in or whatever, took out like Elijah Moore and put someone else in, but like he literally swapped off the Stone Cold Nuts and the Millie, and he slept through the news, so he didn't know anything about weather. He put in the wrong contest. I'm like, you're lucky, dude, that this lineup just didn't chip, because he was like at the end of like 3 quarters, he basically he would have been like 5th in the Millie with like win equity. He wouldn't end up winning because he didn't have Jacobs in the end, but it's just one of those things. I was like,
yeah, that's the thing. I had the nuts if Jacobs didn't bust off that. I had like the team. One of my teams was like so nice. It was Zay Jones, Garrett Wilson. It was Herbert and Keenan and D Hop. Like I said, and it had James Conner, and it was so nice. And then that till it wasn't that what was it, like an 86-yard touchdown in overtime or whatever it was.
That's what it was. I didn't even see it too. That was the other thing. On my Friday shows last week, I talked about how I liked Josh Jacobs.
I loved him.
And then I didn't play him because of the
stupid
damn injury
tags.
news.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head, like, the dude got downgraded. But I just got to stop. Like, if guys are playing and I like them, I just need to play them. Like, and just take it. Take the T. Higgins game. Remember that game where he played? It was
a leg injury on a running back.
But then he didn't play. Like, so that stuff sticks in my head. Like, what if he only plays 10 snaps and leaves the game? But I just got to play the guys I like as long as they're in, regardless of injury. Because
don't you have to acknowledge a leg injury on a running back though?
We can always.
It was 3%. Like, I don't know. I felt awful, like liking him and then not having
playing him. Yeah.
Any of him. Like, imagine in 150 just not having any of him, but you loved him coming.
That actually happened to me in NBA last
dude.
year.
He was in my main Yahoo lineup that I switched to fucking Michael Carter. Like what? Just disgusting. All right, so we're back. We have a new week now to make many more mistakes or to right the ship. And
we're writing the ship sometime here soon, I would say.
Well, this is a good week to do it then. We got 12 games. We've got 3 monster totals, kind of. At least they feel like monster totals after the season we've been having. We've got KC -2.5 at Cincy, 53-point total. I mean, Burrow and Mahomes. I mean, that sounds like a pretty juicy game. The problem is there's some pricing in issues in there too. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but maybe that's a good thing if we figure that out. Then we got Jacksonville. My boy Trevor Lawrence finally comes through when I don't think I was on him. At Detroit. Detroit's actually favored, believe it or not. Detroit -151. Some interesting plays in there. I mean, I'm probably going to go down and have too much DeAndre Swift again, like I always do. And then I'm going to be screaming, like, why don't they just use this dude every play? But then there's the Chargers at the Raiders with another juicy total. Raiders are 1-point favorites. That should be a good game, 49.5-point total. Then you got like 2 mid-tiers. Miami, who always seems to make for good DFS games, at San Francisco, tougher spot. -4 points. San Fran with a 46.5-point total, and the other 46.5-point total is the return of Deshaun Watson, who just so happens to be going back to Houston against his old team, like set up perfectly, right? With Cleveland -7 at Houston, 46.5-point total there. We're going to have to talk about some Damian Pierce chalk running back, which I can't wait to fade again, and so on. As things I always like to do is I look at the Blitz most plays. Blitz most plays spitting out KC Cincinnati with the highest play total. Surprise, surprise, 2 passing offenses. This should be a pass heavy game, quick pace tempo. I think it could be really juicy. Then they have Cleveland, Houston. That kind of surprised me a bit. Then Cardi has Jax at Detroit, and then the Chargers at the Raiders. So those are the games with the most plays, are all in these top tiers here. I always cross-reference that with over at ETR, the Thorman snaps and pace. He's got the 3 up and pace games as Jacksonville, Detroit, Chargers, Raiders, and the KC Cincinnati. So those look like the 3 key games, 3 or 4 key games here. And then there's just a bunch of other games, but we will have some plays from those games for sure. There are some good spots here. But what stands out to you trying to build, like in your first build so far this week, guys?
I mean, just kind of looking at the slate as an overview type slate. I think the 3 games that you talked about, right? Those games are by far, like, everyone's looking to stack those games. Now, they're 3 really good games. It could spread the ownership out just a little bit. But, like, for me, I'm trying to figure out, in my builds at least, which of those games I'm going to be under on, because I just can't be over on all of those games, right? You got to take some stands, and I think my stand is probably the Detroit-Jacksonville game being the lowest on. Not that you can't still pull a play or 2 from that game, because I do think there's some guys that are leveraged off of certain situations in that game that you can play. But for me, it's like, I think I ranked the Chargers game my favorite game. I think that Chargers-Raiders game just goes absolutely nuclear. Love Justin Herbert last week. I love him when Keenan Allen is like huge for that offense too, because he's just a guy that he's like the most reliable guy. He just always seems to like get open when he needs to be. And Herbert's looking a lot better. He struggled early in the season after that injury early. And I think now he's starting to slowly, he still talks about how it just feels weird. Like the injury that he had in there, like still kind of feels weird. So you could tell he's been dealing with this injury and just playing through it for a while now. But I think he's finally starting to like get back to the normal Justin Herbert type. And I think Keenan Allen is going to play a bigger part. And the Raiders secondary is terrible. So I think that's my key on this slate is like, how do I rank those games? Which game am I going to be under on? And which game do I like the most and want to have like the most ownership, at least for my lineups, invested in? And I think that's where I'm at right now. I don't know if you guys have a take on that.
Yeah, I feel really similarly. Like, I'm backloading a lot to those games: KC, Cincinnati, San Diego, Las Vegas. I think that probably the majority of people are going to be thinking the same way I'm thinking also. The only game I really see that I like in the 1 o'clock slate is that Jacksonville Detroit game. But I feel like some of that chalk may bust for whatever reason. And if it does, like, it's just better to be a little backloaded. The Tennessee Philly game, I think that's interesting also. Jalen Hurts isn't really garnering the ownership he probably should be. There's a nice little revenge matchup there for A.J. Brown. Really like Treylon Burks last week. He's under 4K at 4.6. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much my thoughts on it. I feel like wide receiver pricing is a little bit better. Well, it was last week, and I think it is a little bit better again this week than it has been through the first 11 weeks, where we can kind of go to some of these guys under 5K a little bit more. Sky Moore down at 3.1 or 3K, whatever he's at. He's in the 3Ks. I don't know if he's the man exactly, but I don't know. There's a bunch of it looks like it's going to be a good slate, good set of games.
Well, how does it feel to not how does it feel to not have to worry about Tom Brady? You don't have to
good. Yeah. Good. Hopefully it's good for my bankroll.
Yeah, you don't have
I didn't end up getting to him like I ended up not doing that last week.
Oh, thank God! All right,
I know.
I'm
I
glad.
really had.
I just
It was a
stuck
really
in
tough
your.
decision point for me
I
on
just
Sunday.
stuck in your head just a little bit, both of you, because even Kirkwood kind of took your side a little bit.
Yeah, I said I kind of
like.
I said I kind of can get on board with Brady last week.
Yeah, so I hope
And he got
I just
18.
you heard my
God.
voice when you were trying to click that name, and you were just like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. JSU's yelling at me right now. Tom Brady is he's not in the winner right now. You can play a receiver. That's fine. You can play a running back from there. Just Tom Brady. Not
Godwin smashed.
Yeah, Godwin smashed. That's the one thing I wish I didn't have enough
to you
Godwin.
guys, I said just play someone, have exposure to Brady that way. That's where people get confused. Like, forget about the price tag. Oh, it's Tom Brady, the price tag. No. Like, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, they were the two best quarterbacks on that slate. And yes, Mike White smashed, but no one played Mike White in the monsoon. There was like 1 or 2% that played Mike White. So outside of that, it was Herbert, it was Kyler. I still think Herbert or Kyler was on the Millie winner. Am I wrong? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think it was Mike White.
Yeah,
I think it was her. I think it was Kyler. It was one of them.
I think it was Kyler. You're right. Because I reviewed this lineup. The winner actually played a Kyler James Conner team. That was the winning lineup. So that slate QB, I think people just overthink it sometimes when we have like these plays. That's still like Kyler Murray came in at 10%. Justin Herbert came in like, I don't know, probably around that too. Like, that's not bad ownership on a slate where quarterback is terrible, but everyone still wants to get 5% of this guy and 20% of this guy and 10% of this guy and just spread it all around. It's just so bad when you have the obvious plays on a bad quarterback slate. That was last week. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it when we get that type of slate where there's just some obvious plays and obvious games and people will refuse to, and the ownership isn't even insane. Like 10% for those guys is ridiculous. Like they should have been 20 plus on that slate.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So let's start it off at running backs. We'll knock that out first. Then we'll head over to QB, give our thoughts there, which we kind of just alluded to a little bit. And then wide receiver, tight end, and then bring it home with the Bobby Gomes DFS defensive segment. And we will then give our favorite stacks. All right, running back. Well, we've got to talk about Josh Jacobs again because this is a great, game environment, number one. I mean, he certainly looked fine, right? He still has a Q tag next to him this week, but you have to assume he's playing. And the dude smashed. I mean, obviously that overtime, he was smashing anyway because of the way the slate was. But 33 rushing attempts, 229 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 74 yards. I mean, this is insane, right? Like when he's chalk. Remember when he was chalk and he just nuked? I mean, then he just took it to a whole new level this week.
Kirkwood, you're forgetting Amir Abdullah caught a touchdown too. So didn't he, or something like that? Didn't he get a touchdown or something like that? Am I wrong on that?
I was watching the Chargers.
He got a touchdown either way, but like still. Josh Jacobs got so much friggin' work in that game off of the injury that he had, the downgraded injury. He was smashed. I think he had 33 before that run, right? In overtime.
Yeah, something around there. Like he was already the nuts, but like he just buried people once that happened. But and it was just so crazy because it was just like overtime, and then and we were hoping for overtime in the Chargers game, and then they go for 2 or whatever.
That tilted the crap out of me.
Me too. I hate when teams do that.
Wait a second.
I got the Gerald. I had Gerald Everett on the
right. I think it was the right
call,
move. It was the right move. So I don't want to bash the coach for the right move because he did make the right call. It was just annoying for fantasy because I stacked that whole game. So I'm like, yes, all my teams are going into OT. I'm going to get OT. And then I see him lining up for the 2. I'm like, no, this is awful. We're going to get the 2 and they're just going to win.
There was another game where that happened last week too. I forget what it was, but it was the same thing. They just went for 2 and I was like,
yep.
It's the right call, but it's absolutely
Who was that?
fucking.
Was it?
I don't know. I forget.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Well,
either way, it was the right decision, but stinks for fantasy.
Yeah, not the right decision for Team Kirk. I'll tell you that right now. Team Kirk D's, that was a bad decision. He wasn't happy. Anyways, it's a nut matchup again, right? The Chargers now he gets to face 29th in DVOA versus the run. Chargers allow the fourth most DraftKings points for running backs per game. They have allowed the third most total rushing yards allowed in the league. They're right up there and everything. They're the fifth most rushing TDs allowed. Jacobs leads the league in rushing yards, believe it or not. I mean, he's had elite usage and still, 79% of the snaps last week. I mean, things are just it's tough fading this guy. And the Chargers 5.4 yards per carry allowed, most yards after contact. It's like every little thing I try to look up, it's like all in Jacobs' favor. Only thing is he's going to be extremely popular. Should be. He still has that Q tag, but like people aren't going to. I feel like he's going to be they're going to over own to compensate for last week. I mean, just like we were talking about, right? So he's going to be like the highest owned running back, 7,900 though. So there is room for failure. Behind him, we have Travis Etienne. This is more game environment. He's got a Q tag too, but all signs are that he'll be good to go. Coach Speak said he's not worried about it at all. He's good to go. So. Yeah, he's facing Detroit, right? 26 DVOA versus the run in the dome. ETN is like that. You just see his like speed and like that big play potential out of him. So like a dome, just like, the antenna goes up when I see the Detroit matchup in the dome. It just feels like a really good spot for him. Detroit's second most rushing TDs allowed, second in yards per attempt. In the last two close games that the Jags played, when this game does project to be close, he's had 20, 28, and 24 carries. So I think as long as this game stays, competitive, should see monster workload. Maybe you guys will be a little bit worried about Jermichael Hasty. I don't know. Maybe, right? Like he kind of emerged out of nowhere, but whatever. ETN, good spot. Right behind him, we got Kenneth Walker, 7,000. I mean, he didn't have elite usage, but he has elite efficiency, except from a touchdown standpoint, right? This guy's getting touchdowns efficiently. Now, he's also, his line, was crazy, right? He had 14 rushing attempts for only 26 rushing yards. So very inefficient as a rusher last week in a really good game, but did have his 2 TDs. But he has shown monster upside throughout the season. This is another tougher matchup, the Rams, but like from a DVOA standpoint, but they're also missing some guys. I know Aaron Donald's going to be out, and this team just isn't very competitive on the offensive end. So that just sets up for a running back, bringing it back against them. So Kenneth Walker needs to be discussed. And then we still have guys like Nick Chubb to talk about against Houston. That's the top matchup, 30th DVOA versus the run. They're a nice favorite. This is a game where they should just lean on him, and he should be completely efficient. Like monster breakout runs are definitely in the range of outcomes here for him. So we can talk about him. Aaron Jones is, another really solid matchup. And against Chicago, 28th DVOA versus the run. Maybe that game could be a little bit sneakier. And then on the other side of that game, I still like David Montgomery. Matchup. This is all about matchup, right? Like against Green Bay, 32nd DVOA versus the run. So those are the guys that I've written down that are going to be kind of chalky that we need to make decision points on, and also all the guys that I like. So first of all, let's get your thoughts on those guys, and then some of your other plays that you guys like. Take it away, Bobby.
Yeah, I'm happy you hit on Montgomery because I liked him too, and I'm not seeing him really projecting like great, but it is a real good matchup for him. He's more of the middle of the pack guy for me. You hit off on Jacobs to start. Like I think Jacobs, like we've seen with the usage he had last week, it's really tough to get away from Jacobs. Then there's the Dameon Pierce question, and it feels like the projection slaves are all over Pierce. It's a good matchup, but he's also attached to Kyle Allen, so I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to be invested in Dameon Pierce. Aaron Jones in that Chicago game, running it back the other way. I think he's very interesting. Chicago, another team that, like, their defense has kind of been decimated over the last couple of weeks. I don't mind going to him. Travis Etienne, like, you hit on all the spots on Etienne. Like, he's completely like in that dome. We should, like, you would imagine, like, the speed that he has would be able to really break off some, like, highlight runs. I Etienne, someone I'm going to prioritize. Kenneth Walker, this might be like a better pace game for Walker, like just like how it's going to play. Like last week, it was more back and forth. They're going to be kind of like it'll be more of a ball control game. So I could see Seattle really getting the ball to Walker and feeding him. I like him a good bit. Do we have any idea about like the Joe Mixon situation? Like, is he playing or what's the deal there?
Still questionable. Still in concussion protocol.
Is he?
He got in 3 limited practices. That's what I'm reading.
So he's probably, yeah. If not, I would have like some interest in P. Ryan. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean they may hold him out again. It doesn't. I don't know. It seems. It seems like he's actually like really questionable. You know, like you follow the concussion stuff all week and you can kind of get a good feel that they're going to play. This doesn't look like that. This is kind of a little bit behind.
Okay, so maybe P. Ryan isn't, but like just with that game environment, P. Ryan looked good too. Like I think P. Ryan's like earned some more like workload in that backfield, just from how he looked last week. I've never been like a really big Mixon guy. Yeah, there's other guys too, like Antonio Gibson at the Giants. I think he's very interesting for tournaments. He's at 5'2". He seems like he's the guy that we want in that backfield, where Brian Robinson, who was like kind of the hype guy, I would just much rather Gibson at this point. Jerick McKinnon at 4.5 in that Cincinnati in that KC Cincinnati game. I think he's a little interesting. Just like if you're looking for stuff under 5K and large field GBPs. Who else? Nick Chubb. Great matchup. Like I really like Chubb this week. It's Kirk kind of broke down all the reasons why. And that's probably it right now from what I can see.
What are you thinking, JSU?
Yeah, so I guess we'll start at the top here. For me, at the top, I think there's 2 guys that I definitely see as the 2 best plays, and that's Derrick Henry against Philly. Philly's been getting crushed against the run, especially the last few weeks. I mean, even against Houston a few weeks ago, Dameon Pierce ran for like 140 yards almost on the ground, which kept them kind of in the game or close. It was an island game, but Philly's just been struggling, especially against the run. That's where teams have got them. Washington got them on the ground. You even saw a little success from Green Bay. It's just been tough for them. And I don't see why Tennessee coming into Philly, I see a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. And I think that's the game. It's got to be the game plan going in. That's what they want to do anyways. And then after that, it's Josh Jacobs. So to me, those are the 2 best plays at the top. Nick Chubb would be 3rd if I had to rank them. My issue with Chubb is, 1, I struggle to see Houston keeping this game competitive. So Nick Chubb, I think he has to get there in the first like 2.5 quarters. 2, I could see a little more Kareem Hunt earlier in the game, which means, you know, Nick Chubb could get him down there, and then we could see Kareem Hunt troll touchdown, which scares me a little bit. And also the Deshaun Watson thing, we'll talk about him in a sec, so I don't want to get too much into it. I do think people will play him, though. So Nick Chubb could be some leverage off of the passing game, which I think will get some ownership. So that's a reason to, I guess, go to him in a great matchup. I just struggle to see how Houston keeps this game competitive. And you guys can, like, it just seems like a game that ends like 24-6 or something like that. Like, it's just, they get up early and then they just kind of sit on it, which I guess could lean to Kareem Hunt. But I think if that's the case and they get up early, You might see Kareem Hunt in there more. You might see Dearness Johnson. He's still there, I think, right? He's still the backup or the third guy. Yeah, you could see him even get some snaps earlier than he probably would. So I don't know, that you got to make some decisions at the top. I definitely rank it Henry and Jacobs 1-2 though. Then you get in the mid tier, and I agree with you guys. It's kind of like ETN or Montgomery. I have a pretty strong take though on David Montgomery, and you guys know I don't like him very much. I never really talk him up too much, but I think this spot is even better than people think. And there's two reasons for it. And the first one everyone agrees with, which is the matchup, obviously. But the second reason is Justin Fields is coming off the injury report, and they said he's good to go pretty much. So it looks like he's going to be in there. But I do not think they're going to want him running as much in this game. They don't want him taking hits, right? He's clearly going to probably have a little bit of a sore. It was a shoulder, I think, that took him out the week before, I'm pretty sure. So they're going to be cautious with him. You saw a lot of design runs too. I don't know if you see as much of that. And what that does is those plays are run plays that they just design for Justin Fields, which takes some maybe, rushing attempts away from a guy like David Montgomery. So I think the rushing attempts actually go up even higher in this spot for David Montgomery. He's been getting he got 17 and 14 the last 2 weeks. I think he's in the 20s this week because I think they run Justin Fields less. And it's a really good spot, 6,200. So I agree with Bob too. He's not going to project as well as some of the other guys in that range. Dameon Pierce projects better than him. Travis Etienne projects better than him, which could keep his ownership somewhat intact. So if he still has decent ownership, I'm going to really like him at 6,200 here in this spot. Etienne.
And let me add to that the threat of Justin Fields just being back there helps Montgomery, as opposed to what we saw with Simeon.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just Justin Fields being in is going to help.
His presence. Yeah. His presence in the threat.
I agree with that 100%. And then I do have ETN. Obviously, he should be looked at. But the last guy I'm gonna talk up, and this is for tournaments. The matchup's really good. The LA Rams are gonna be trailing in this game. Kyron Williams played 70% of the snaps last game, and that was with Bryce in there. But I do think he could have some heavy pass work in this game. They're going to be trailing 5,200. It looks like he's the guy they're kind of leaning towards. Him and Akers are the two guys, but he outsnapped Akers pretty good last game. I think it's more him, so this is just kind of a take, but everyone's going to play Zonovan Knight in the cheap range, 4,600. Kyron's 52. I don't think anyone's really looking too much at Kyron at 52. He'll have ownership, but not crazy amount. So I like him as well in tournaments.
I was thinking that, and the thing that stood out to me, you nails that he ran 21 pass routes.
They like him for the passing work, I think, for sure.
As opposed to five routes or Akers, and we just have to assume that this Rams team is going to be trailing everybody.
They're down Donald. This team is there's no way that defense hasn't already quit anyways. I think that Seattle gets up early, and it sets up well for Kyron to get in there. And Seattle's given up some big games to some of these backs. So we just obviously saw one of them. But
what were you going to say, Bobby?
No, I'm with both of you. I like Kyron Williams a lot. Also, just seeing the pass game work, he seems like game script fits. Nice price.
We'll touch on Dameon Pierce. I want to get a final call on that at the end, but in a second. But some of the other lower owned guys that I'm trying to weed through here. First, I'm gonna play DeAndre Swift some. I'm not sure how heavily. It just he had so many more chances to really have a big game against Buffalo. Like he missed first of all, he had the touchdown that was called back because it was like the half-yard line or whatever, like his knee dragged. He had a ball that was overthrown a tiny bit where he was open in the corner that would have been a touchdown. Like he has so many like red zone opportunities still that I feel like if they just would just play him a little bit more, and like what are they doing with Justin Jackson? So I know it's like I'm going to be frustrated playing him, and I'm good. Like it's very possible I see the same results where he just doesn't get enough work. He only had 5 rushing attempts against Buffalo, which I just think is criminal. But like he's cheap. I think I just want to be optimistic and feel like one of these games they're going to let this dude go a little bit, and so I'm going to try for that. But what are your guys' thoughts on Bam Knight now with the Jets if Robinson's still out again?
So I personally think Robinson's going to be activated for this game. I think they want 3 running backs in there. That doesn't mean that Zonovan Knight isn't the number 1 guy. I think he's the guy that gets the most snaps. He gets the most work from the running back. But if James Robinson and Ty Johnson are both active, right, I could see both of them getting like at least like 20% of the snaps at running back, which, so it's like almost like a 60-40. Maybe it's a 50, maybe it's like 50-50 between Zonovan and the other 2 guys. So that's kind of how I see that role. Now he's 4,600, so you can play him, but it'll all depend on if they are for sure both active and they have 3 running backs in the room. If they have 3 running backs in the room, I won't feel like I need to play them. If they only have 2, though, that makes it different. I think then it more solidifies him as a fine play. I'm still not like gonna overreact though. He's fine to me, but I'm not like running to play the Jets unless obviously there's only 2 guys, because then he'll probably have a much bigger workload than a 50-50 between 3.
I feel the same way. Like, there's no way if there's 3, I'm not playing the Jets committee. I can tell you that much.
The only thing is, it's like, how bad can he be at 4,600?
Well, yeah, he's fine. That's what I mean, though. He's a fine play, I think, either way. I just think I don't need to play him as much if there's 3. Like, I can still play a little bit, but I don't need to play a ton of him if there's 3 is my point.
All right, here's the issue with Dameon Pierce. The only thing, like, it makes it a little bit different for me. Like, this is finally like a really smash spot, running spot, right? Like, their team sucks. Their offense sucks. They don't have Brandon Cooks. Their quarterback play is atrocious, right? They probably should get smoked by Cleveland in this game. But if they don't, it's going to be on the back of Dameon Pierce. The workload that's never been an issue. That's why he projects so well every game, is because the backfield is his. It's just efficiency, right? And it's like he's good. I've never doubted his personal talent. It's his offensive line that sucks. It's his offense that sucks, and at the ownership he's been coming in, it's just been an easy fade for me. This week I'm having a little bit more trepidation, thinking about this, because of you see the matchup Cleveland 30 first and DVOA versus the run. I mean, he very well could have success in this game. And if that's the case, that they could just pound him. So I feel like it's a little bit different, but like, how are you guys handling it? Like, should I just throw him out again or no?
I think you can just keep him in and just don't go crazy. You'd be over the field, but just don't go like too crazy. I have him in currently.
If he's going to get ownership, I struggle to click his name. Like, it's just with that offense, the way it is, I don't know. I don't really love it if he's going to get the ownership that he's projecting to get right now. I rather play some of those other plays. Like, I just think Travis Etienne's a better play in that range. Like, we talked about David Montgomery. I don't know. I can't play everybody, and he's probably going to fall as the guy that I just don't end up playing. who's going to project really well. So, like, if you don't like him, you either got to really underproject him and see if he still hits some teams, like, or just take him out. And as of now, I don't have him. I don't have him in my pool, but
his ownership
we'll
doesn't
see.
look like it's going to be extremely high though. Currently, it looks
So
like
he's gonna be like in Yahoo where I play like a lot of action. He's gonna be everyone's gonna have him. So I'm probably gonna be like the only guy without him.
What about?
And I'm
fine too. Here's the other thing too. That's one game where people do want to play some Cleveland guys. I will say we talked about some of these 1 o'clock games. I do think that's a game where people are going to want some of those guys, and we're going to get the quarterback in a second. But so like when they build teams, they want someone from the other side too. They want to correlate. They want to stack. Dameon Pierce is just like the easy guy to do it with, at running back at that price. The projections, like, he's just going to fit. So that's where I struggle with. I think the ownership is going to be, like 15, 20%. Like, what are you thinking, Bob? Like somewhere in that range, or do you think it's going to be lower than that?
I think it's going to get steamed up a bit, but currently, like, it's sitting around like that range. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? Fuck Dameon Pierce. Give me David Montgomery over him all day.
Montgomery seems like the natural pivot.
I am such the Montgomery stan. I'm the only like.
No, I'm with you. Right? I like him too. I've always liked him. He's not bad. Like, he is this like
he gets such a bad rap. He
gets a horrible rap.
It's not a correct take.
I mean, I don't think he's great, but I think he's great for this slate.
Well, we're not saying he's a world beater, but like when he's in the context of certain slates, like he's not the way people talk about him. They talk about him like he's, I don't know. He's like an afterthought every time, and it's the perfect leverage situation.
I gotta stop swearing. I apologize. Maybe we can edit that out. The swear. Someone might be listening in the car with their kids. You ever do that? Bobby, take your boy out, listen to some DFS, take him on a nice trip to New Hampshire, so you can
get your
take him to the rest stop on right, that's what I took my boy to his first trip to the rest stop.
Imagine the kid's thought process. Like, we take this ride every week. We pull over, like when he's like 5 or 6 or whatever, and you just pull out. You're up there.
He puts it all together. He puts it all together,
like later on in life, what you were doing. Yeah.
All right. Any other guys that are like fringe plays? Like, any interest in Cordero Patterson? Wow, we didn't even talk about McCaffrey, who with like Elijah Moore going down, right?
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell. Why did I say Elijah
Mitchell's
Moore?
Down? Yeah, I get those two mixed up more. Elijah Mitchell, Elijah Moore, those names for whatever reason. If Mitchell's down, then I have interest in McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's out. He's not coming back.
Dalvin Cook, like, he's per 7,200. Like, he's almost like forgotten about right there, right?
Jet's been good.
Keep forgetting about him. Keep forgetting about him.
Yeah.
It's not good for my Rainmaker team.
I honestly,
it always comes back to your damn Rainmaker.
Dude, I shipped a showdown because I didn't have any. I put Jonathan Taylor in the captain. I put Michael Pittman there, and then I put Najee Harris, who got hurt, in. And then I only had one card that like even fit.
Najee Harris.
Wait, listen. So the only card that I had that fit, that was in that range was I had Benny Snell. So I just was like, put the backup running back in there, and I shipped because of it. Solo ship.
Damn, you shipped with Benny Snell.
So another
Benny Snell touchdown really ruined my night.
I literally made one team in the contest, and I won it.
I had the Stone Cold Nuts, and it got passed at the end by the damn Benny Snell teams.
Another pivot off Pierce, if Mixon were to sit, and the best game we would say on the slate is P. Ryan.
He's a much better play if Mixon's out. I agree.
Telling you, you know what? DeAndre Swift is going off.
Is he going to play more than 20% of the snaps?
He's gonna.
I get why coaches absolutely hate him. By the way,
why? I don't.
He does like things that like would totally irk me. He had a first down last week. He caught a pass over the middle. Just get the first down, dude. He did like this stutter step, and instead of just going forward, like he does things that are just like it would be really irritable if you were coaching him.
Yeah, he played 33% of the snaps, and they play 3 running backs. Like,
I know it's terrible, but I feel like it's just gonna.
You don't want to play the committee, dude.
I'm doing it. It's just fuel to the fire. When you guys say I can't, it just makes me.
I played him on Thanksgiving.
I like that.
Yeah, I was all in. I was all in on him on
like
Thanksgiving.
Be stubborn. I respect it.
He ran so bad. I mean,
my brothers were in on him too. I had 0 of them in 150, and my brothers like played him on their one team.
I did too.
They're rooting for him the whole night. They're rooting for him the whole game, and I'm just sitting back watching, other people like score, and they're all tilted and say, he almost had a touchdown here. Oh, he almost had a touchdown.
We were eating Thanksgiving at my girl's family's house, and I'm sitting there on the TV going, "Come on, just give it to put Swift in, and they're like,
he had chances, Kirkwood. How many chances?
Dude, he got in the end zone. He was down by an inch, like by.
Yeah, he did. He did get in the end zone. He did.
He had so many red. He got the 2-point conversion, which
his knee was just
shoulda, whatever. I mean, that's the break sometimes.
The thing is, though, like even if he has a ceiling game, he's competing with a lot of these guys that, like Montgomery's in that range. There's no one there. What's Swift's price?
5,600.
Yeah, P Ryan. If Mixon is out, like P Ryan, it's just him and Chris Evans in that great game environment. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not saying to play him. I'm just saying I'm going to be playing him.
He's in a great game environment too, though. Yeah, maybe
I'll back up your Derrick Henry. Everyone thinks of the Eagles as like this good rush D always, but they're not. He got hurt, and then that's why they brought Ndamukong Suh in, and they're trying to patch this thing up. Since week 7, they've been like pretty bad, in like a lot of different rushing metrics. So, and Henry should be able to take advantage of this. And I feel like people are he's gonna be like the one expensive guy that even though he's up there like projection wise and stuff, like people are gonna just say, I'm not playing. He's like
somebody has to fall, right, Kirkwood? Like
he's gonna fall.
It's either him or Nick Chubb. I can't decide who it's gonna be. One of these two dudes, ownership wise, is gonna fall.
So we build with them both, but what do we? Then we're gonna be stuck with all the Zay Jones and.
Yeah, you're going to get stuck in that 4 or 5K range. I do think there could be a lot of receivers that we could. We'll get into it. Some cheap receivers that we could, patch that team up with in the end.
All right, let's
go studs.
Let's start our way over there. So let's move on over to quarterback. So after his career best game, Trevor Lawrence is now going to be popular. And as you guys know on this show, I've probably touted Trevor Lawrence a little too much. And I wasn't on him for his best game last week, so
that's always the worst.
Feels bad.
Isn't that always how it works?
Yeah. But he's in the Dome against Detroit. Great matchup for pass and run. The thing that stands out, I was digging through. So Detroit allows the most fantasy points per game to QBs. So you can just take that right there at face value, and then they also. But if you dig in, the reason for that is because they've allowed the most rushing yards to QBs and rushing touchdowns to QBs. So then you got to dig in and see who have they played. Well, they've played the Bills, Josh Allen. They've played one of those big, massive Justin Fields games. Danny Dimes, I think, went off against them. Let me just double check that because I know they played them, but.
He had 50 yards.
Yeah. 50 yards and a touchdown, right? That's skewing the numbers. But but Trevor Lawrence can run a little bit, and it's a good thing in the Dome. And especially when they get down to the goal line, he gets some chances too, to sneak in. So what I'd say is yes, it's a great match of quarterbacks and it's in the Dome, but it's also a lot of the numbers that are skewing that are from these really elite rushing QBs, and he's not one. But I think we can give him an uptick in some production there, which would be nice. I mean, he's actually had a pretty solid 5 of his last 6 games. Like he hasn't broken the slate or anything, but he's been pretty good. He had that awful, 8-point fantasy game against Denver where they just looked pathetic. But other than that, he's been pretty decent. 25 points against the Colts, 21 against the Giants, 17 against the Raiders is disappointing. 21 against KC, and then just about 29 points last week against the Ravens. So yeah, I like him. And like ownership's going to be like, we don't have like a 30% like Geno Smith this week. Like Trevor Lawrence, none of these guys are going to get that kind of ownership. It's going to be spread out. So I don't think ownership really matters this week unless we got like a minuscule owned play. Deshaun Watson is going to be popular, which is kind of funny because like we don't really know what to expect in this game, like what he's going to look like after all this. But that's interesting. Joe Burrow looks like the easy play, right? Like 6,900, he's affordable. You'd expect like when they certainly will pass. I mean, like he's had 42 passing. He's had a game this season against Pitt with 53 passing attempts, right? Like the upside is massive in this game. And if this game shoots out and both of these guys going back and forth, it seems like Derek Carr is going to get ownership, but I doubt he really will. It's like he's projected to have some ownership. It doesn't matter. But there's Herbert. There's Mahomes at 8,300, who's tough to fit. And it's why? Because you want to play him with Travis Kelce. Well, Travis Kelce's 7,900 and Mahomes is 8,300. So that's really limits your lineup. So it's tough to get that from an optimizer standpoint. You're going to have to force that in. I still think it's good, but I'll be interested to hear your guys' takes there. The other last thing that stands out to me is that like Jalen Hurts is going to be like extremely low owned at 8K. Lamar is going to be extremely low owned at 7,800. And Justin Fields is going to be like non-existent. And we don't really know what to expect with him if they're going to keep it easy. Like I think JSU thinks, like he said, but like there is a world where they don't, and he's just fine and he's good to go. I mean, that is in the range of outcomes, and we could be like, damn, why didn't I play this guy at low ownership? When he, after the season he's been having. But there's a lot of different ways to go. Tua, he's like an afterthought. I have him here projected ownership of 1.5%. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, against San Francisco, I mean, sure. I mean, at that ownership, why not? But these are the guys that I'm looking at. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, for me, like you hit on the guy. I love Joe Burrow. I just think he's in a really good spot. I think if you do want to fade Pierce, I think like I kind of hit on, I think Burrow, P. Ryan, and one of those receivers is a way to kind of get different within the stack, which I think will be just the stack in general is just very hard because Chase is priced up and Higgins is priced up. But it's a game I think you just want to have exposure to both quarterbacks. On the Mahomes side, I don't mind going down to like the Sky Moores or the Justin Watsons and then trying to get Kelce that way. It's just the game. It's such a good spot in general. Like it's going to be back and forth. I have no issue trying to get to these two guys as much as possible. In terms of Trevor Lawrence, I'd have like just trepidation around his receivers, even though like Zay Jones had like a career week last week, Christian Kirk. I just think people are going to go there. I don't mind the other side of that game with Jared Goff now. And like looking at Goff, you said you don't like, I was kind of off on Swift, but now I'm like, Goff needs 2 pass catchers. Amon-Ra is going to be popular. Maybe Swift is a guy that you do take into consideration in Goff stacks because he's pretty much like the pass catching back. We think you never know, but it seems like he's the guy that they're throwing the ball to out of the backfield the most. Yeah, and then you kind of hit on Jalen Hurts. I really like him. I like that game. I think it's sneaky. What about Jimmy Garoppolo? Like he's tied to McCaffrey. You're taking out Elijah Moore. Debo's not there, so it's kind of condensed with Ayuk and Kittle. I'm pretty sure Debo's is out, right? Or he's like leaning towards doubtful.
I think he's truly questionable, but probably like on the lower side of questionable.
Yeah. So it's like a condensed situation in that game. Like we know Miami can play fast, and it's going to be one of the lower owned games on this. In terms of like good games to play, it's going to be one of the lower owned spots. So,
I mean, if he's out, I have to have more interest in Ayuk and Kittle.
yeah, right. And it just becomes condensed. It's very easy. Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey at that point, and he's cheap, so he might be a nice goal favorite.
We found our Tom Brady replacement. We're rolling Jimmy G this week.
It's just condensed, right? Like it's easy for us to make decisions on where we want to go, and then you have the run backs. You have Hill, you have Waddle. You know what I mean? It's there for us. I don't know. Those are the guys I'm looking at.
I mean, Miami's been a cheat code. It seems like so. It's like, what are you cooking up, JSU?
Sorry, the wife just walked in and the dog was going nuts.
Reggie.
Yeah.
My kid's like banging a hammer in the other room, so I'm trusting you're good.
We can't hear that though. You'll hear my dog.
I don't know if I've been wondering if you guys can hear it.
I can't hear it. But so first of all, for a quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Kirkwood makes a good point. So no quarterback's going to be like extremely popular to the point where you're like, you need to fade him. I do think Trevor Lawrence will be the most popular quarterback, in that like 10 to 15% range. I being a little lower on that game than the other two high total games. I'm not playing Trevor Lawrence because of that. I will have a little more Travis Etienne just to kind of leverage off Lawrence, some of, less passing touchdowns. Maybe Travis Etienne rushes into hurts Lawrence's ceiling, whatever. And the quarterbacks I'm looking at right now, Joe Burrow, who will get some ownership because it's one of the higher total games for sure. But 6,900 is a really nice price tag for Joe Burrow. And I love him when Jamar Chase is back. And it looks like we're going to get Jamar Chase back for this game. I think it'll just open up the offense even more. It'll help out all their other receivers too. With Jamar Chase being back, the defense is going to be focused more on other guys or on him. So other guys will have better looks, maybe less looks, but better, more quality looks. And so I love Joe Burrow here. I think that you can pair him with Chase for sure. Tyler Boyd's got a nice price tag. He disappointed. I think he could be someone that bounces back. The Burrow stacks, I think, are just easy to make. You play one of Higgins or Chase, and then you play one of Boyd or Hurst or Pirine. Bobby makes good. If Pirine's in as a starter and there's no Mixon, I think you can play a Pirine even in the Burrow stacks. I think he fits fine.
I think it makes it feel better too. If Mixon is out, it just feels better, like knowing that like Pirine's strength is in the passing game.
Yeah.
And it's I agree. You don't have to worry about the 58. You don't have to worry about the 58-point mixing game. And
I think their plan is to throw. The Chiefs have always been an aggressive defense. Teams around the league though have figured out not to blitz Burrow as much, to not do that because he's very good against the blitz, and a lot of teams have figured that out. But the Chiefs are just one of those teams where they're kind of almost like set in their ways. I don't know if they're not going to do it or not, but that could even make it a better spot for Burrow if they are planning to stay aggressive and blitz him. You have more opportunities for more one-on-one chances with either T or Boyd or Chase or whoever. So I think Burrow's my favorite. Justin Herbert, number 2 for me. I already talked about it a little bit, but this is my favorite game. I think Herbert is just rounding into form. We saw, passing attempts, 47 last game. I think this game goes back and forth too. So I think we see another high, passing attempt game here for Herbert. And I could see an even bigger game, honestly. Like I thought he played better, but still like not as good as he could have played last week. And I think it's only going to get better. So I could see an even bigger game this week. And he had 28 last week. So I'll definitely take some Justin Herbert. I don't know at 7,200, I think it's going to keep his ownership honestly somewhat in check. just kind of being around that range on this slate. So the ownership might be even lower than I think it should be. And I love him. Then the other guy would be, I guess, if I'm looking for a cheap guy, it'd probably be Derek Carr in lineups where you're not playing Josh Jacobs. You're kind of leveraging that play. I think there's going to be points on both sides, so you're hoping more on the passing game, right? But I do think it makes sense in tournaments, especially if you might be fading Josh Jacobs on your main team, or you're just like, you have some Josh Jacobs, but on your non-Jacobs team, you play Carr, hope maybe it's a big passing game because Jacobs will get ownership. So, and I don't think even though Derek Carr may look like he's going to get some ownership, more people are clicking the Trevor Lawrence button. He's going to still at the end fall at like the 5% range probably for ownership, which is fine for Derek Carr. So I don't mind him here. Those are really the three quarterbacks I like. I agree with your Fields take. My issue is I really worry about like the running attempts. I do worry about the designed run plays. He could run just scrambling though, right, Kirkwood? He could get there just on that where he just scrambles. It's a broken play and he just is gone, right? We've seen it happen where he just hits the Jets and he just runs by the whole defense. Yeah. So that could happen with Justin.
And like, Fields. What if he's actually 100% healthy?
And if he is, I'll probably kick myself for not playing him because he'll probably have a good fantasy game. That's the truth. Maybe it is something where I should have a sliver.
But is this like Justin where we talk ourselves off? Like, oh, Josh Jacobs is injured, and like that, and Justin Fields goes off with 150 rushing yard, breaks an 80-yard rushing TD, and we're like, and he's 3% owned, and we're like, why didn't we do this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe is someone I should at least say is in play if you have that feeling of, he's fully healthy and ready to go. And then I think the other leverage play in tournaments, and I'm probably personally not going to get here, but if Zonovan Knight is going to be really popular, playing Mike White in the passing game and hoping that their scores are all passing touchdowns. Minnesota's been decent against the run. You can definitely get them, though, through the air. They've been much worse through the air. So that's a way also to differentiate if he's not going to have as much ownership. Garrett Wilson, you want to play. Maybe you just double stack it. You play him and Conklin. You play him and Corey Davis, him and Elijah Moore, stuff like that.
The thing about Garrett Wilson is that he's a legit wide receiver one, and he's like cheap every single week. You know what I mean? He was brought down by his card. I do want to back up one thing because I looked into this game pretty heavily. First of all, I do love Joe Burrow, and I feel like Joe Burrow should be owned like Geno Smith was owned last week. Like he should have more like ownership than at least what's being projected right now. Justin Herbert. So when I look at this matchup against the Raiders, so the Raiders 32nd DVOA versus the pass. Okay, that's great. It's the best possible passing matchup, right? But if you dig into where they give up their fantasy production, most of it, they're like the best matchup for like receiving backs, right? So they give up 500 and they've given up the most yards, 599 to receiving running backs. They've also given up the third most touchdowns to receiving running backs. Well, what's the strength of the Chargers? It's Eckler, right? Like that's a massive Eckler spot screaming to me. They also give up a ton of production in the slot. Well, who's over there? Well, it's Keenan Allen. So it's like you're telling me that like the best possible matchups in this game on the side are Eckler and Keenan Allen. Like Herbert should absolutely smash, right? Like this it almost seems too easy. So I'm there.
I mean, look at that secondary, Kirkwood. Their secondary is just crushed. They got guys in there that should not be starting really, to be honest. I mean, you look at that secondary. Rocky Asin, we've targeted him for DFS for years. He was on the Colts for a while. Tyler Hall on the other side. Tyler Hall, Jayon Brown. These guys are not, guys we should be worried about playing. Going up against. I think Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer.
I love Josh Palmer.
I think one or two of these guys have monster games, and I talked about it last week on the on the Up the Lock show I did. But DeAndre Carter, another guy, he's playing a ton. I was like, Josh Palmer and Keenan Allen are both going to get ownership. If you want to be different in your Herbert stacks, play Carter with one of those two. Like do something like that, and he's not going to get owned again. The guy's been on the field like 75% of his snaps last week. He's going to keep playing. He's not going to get ownership. He fits in a double stack where Herbert spreads it around, and he's like the cheap guy that gets there again. Like I could see it again. He's 3,900. Coming off a 10-target game, and he's still not going to really project or get ownership. So I would make sure, especially if you're an MME guy and you're high on this game, you're high on Herbert, you're high on Jacobs, Carr, just the whole game in general, I would make sure to keep Carter in your pool and get some of him in your Herbert double stacks, because I do think he's just on the field too much not to get some looks. And
he's the deep guy. He's Mike Williams for all you care.
Well, but the defense is keying in on Keenan, Eckler, right? So Carter is going to get more of the one-on-one looks than anybody else probably, right? He's like the last person they're thinking of. So it makes sense, when you look at it, he fits well in double stacks too.
Last little nugget on Herbert. He's been playing injured for most of this season, right? And he's still second in passing attempts. It's like, so they are a passing offense, right? Like Eckler's strength is in the passing game, get him in space. It's like, so it just, and now they have like the best possible matchup. Like, yeah, I'm playing her.
That game's gonna crush. Like,
that's gonna be like all my high dollar stuff is gonna be.
But like, I'm just gonna go in on that. That game's gonna crush. Like,
I'm with you.
The first team I built this week was like a Herbert, Josh Palmer team with Eckler. So
let's go, boys. This is week. Yeah. This is our week. This is the game.
I love it.
All right. Let's. Should we touch on Mahomes? Did we touch on any? We touched on everything.
I just struggle paying like 8.3 for anyone or 8K plus for anyone on this slate.
Yeah, just play Burrow and like try to fit in Kelsey.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to play Kelsey, that's the way to do it. You know what I mean? Or play a cheap quarterback and get Kelsey and get like the secondary stack with this game. Play Kelsey and Chase with a Derek Carr, Foster Moreau, Keenan Allen stack. Like, I don't know, something like that.
That's your first choice, Derek Carr? Come on, dude.
Well, I was thinking of cheap quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones. I'm not playing Trevor Lawrence.
We already gave you the Jimmy G.
We already gave you Jimmy G?
Oh, Jimmy G. No fucking shot I'm playing Jimmy G. Can't do it. I can play a receiver, though, from Jimmy G. I'll play a Juwan Johnson or Jennings. Yeah. Sorry, Juwan Jennings. I'll play George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. I'll play one of those.
So what about Tua? Are we like we haven't hit on Tua at all? Are we totally out on Tua?
I can't play Tua. Did you see what happened to him once that tackle went down? If Armstead's definitely out, I can't play, and I'm pretty sure he is. I can't play Tua.
All right.
He got crushed, but he got sacked 3 times in a row right after that left tackle. Armstead went out of the game.
That's good to know. You're probably saving me
have a good D. Like, I don't want to steal Bobby Gomes' defensive segment, but I will say I've been running hot in the defensive segment the last 2 weeks. I gave out the Miami Dolphins last week. I forget what defense I gave out the week before.
Chiefs were still good The Chiefs were good last week.
Chiefs?
They were still fine.
They were fine.
Yeah.
But the Miami Dolphins crushed.
Yeah, I had Miami. It was stupid because everyone had Miami on Yahoo because they were so cheap.
The worst thing about Miami last week was I correlated them with Wilson, and when I just should have just.
Again, though, it almost leveled it out, right, Bob? Like when you put those two together, because you probably weren't playing the Miami D without Wilson, so it was fine. It made it feel better.
It's fine in single entry, but in MME, I wish I had let them play by themselves.
My point though is you weren't playing them without Wilson.
Yeah. Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the way to differentiate Wilson.
Who was the best play? Who was the best play from that game? Was it Waddle? The Miami side, who is the
honestly? Wilson was bad, and he was one of the better scoring plays.
That game kind of just disappointed in general.
Waddle did drop a few big passes. I will say he could have had a monster game. He dropped a few passes.
Yeah, he didn't get a touchdown. So he had 10 targets, only 5 receptions for 85 yards. I just remember him
easily had 20 plus fantasy points. I'm positive he dropped a few big plays.
All right, so let's move it on over to wide receiver. So wide receiver at the top of the list from an ownership standpoint. Well, from the high end, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7,100, just elite level usage. Big game against Buffalo, 10 targets, 9 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Even had a designed rush. Going to be the top play. Garrett Wilson is going to be the chalk of the day at 5,300. He's a wide receiver 1 in a good matchup against Minnesota with a quarterback that certainly looks better than Zach Wilson did, and still too cheap. Okay, he is too cheap. So that's going to be the debate with ownership and price and upside and ceiling and all that. What's crazy is I had Zay Jones last week at 1% ownership. Well, now he's going to be 16 to 20%, somewhere 15 to 20%, somewhere in that range. Christian Kirk, is going to be high on too, 6,300. These guys are going to, they get a good amount of volume, great target share in the dome, great game. I get it. They are good plays, I think, but it is a little scary from ownership. There's Devontae Adams, there's Amari Cooper, there's T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. We've got a lot of places to go. What are we doing, Bobby?
Yeah, so let me just pull this up quick. For me, it's going to be Amon-Ra. I just think he grades out super well. I think it's going to be Amon-Ra for a lot of people, though. Keenan Allen, just another phenomenal spot. When we were going over the Chargers, we hit on him. I think he's a really good play.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of low owned. It seems like.
That's gonna steam.
That's gonna steam.
That's gotta get steamed. Yep. T. Higgins, 7,200. Higgins and Chase, maybe whoever comes in more low owned, but we still need a clean. Chase could have played last week, I guess. So it's just teams have kind of been scheming towards taking away Chase, and we see a very good rapport in recent weeks with Burrow and Higgins. Probably have both of them for what it's worth. Christian Kirk, I feel like he's a guy that everyone's going to play with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think I'm playing Lawrence, but I think I will play some Kirk.
Love the name.
Yeah, he's a good name, so it's good mojo there. Are we interested in these I don't know, Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones? I think they're firmly in play. Donovan Peoples-Jones probably more for me than Cooper, being that he's 4.9. It's a significant price difference. Seattle receipt, I don't mind Tyler Lockett. I think he's fine at 6K. Trying to go through.
I got 2.
Yeah, give me.
How are we not interested in AJ Brown or Devontae Smith against what should be a pass funnel?
Yeah. The Titans are a complete pass funnel. AJ Brown revenge. I know we're not usually revenge guys, but there was some bad blood there at the end. I feel like AJ Brown wanted to get signed, so I definitely like AJ Brown. I like that call a lot. Devontae Smith too. Their short area targets. He's fantastic, getting to him. And Josh Palmer at 5.6. I really like Palmer for some reason. I think he's just a little cheaper than Allen. He's not. Mike Williams is still out. I think he makes for a really solid play. He was one of the guys that really stuck out to me. Garrett Wilson's going to be the chalk. He's Garrett. Well, after we seen last week, he's at 5.3. I think Palmer's an interesting pivot if you wanted to make that happen. But I also think Garrett Wilson's likely good chalk too. So, who else? Treylon Burks, Nico Collins is at 4.2, under 5K. Treylon Burks at 4.6. Sky Moore's at 3.1. Justin Watson 3.2. Some of those Mahomes guys. Christian Watson at 5.2, I think is interesting for Green Bay. That's pretty much all I get. What do you get, Kirkwood?
Yeah, that's all I got all of them. But I do like that Watson call. I mean, he is the guy. Like everyone's saying, I'm not worried about Alan Lazard. Give me like Watson all day.
Yeah, you can't play Lazard has no ceiling, dude. It's just like so irritating.
But Johnny AirPods has some. He's been cooking up something over here. So what do we got?
Yeah, just speaking on Watson too, they got a safety out, they got a cornerback out for the Bears. So the Bears defense was already bad, and then you put those things in. I think Christian Watson makes for a really good tournament play. Probably won't project as well either, but big play upside is definitely there.
And like red zone upside, touchdown equity is
touchdown equity is for sure there. Romeo Doubs is something, he might be back for this game, so that's at least something to at least keep in mind. But I do think Christian Watson is at least has that second, like that main outside receiver role kind of locked up, or should at least. As of right now. So I'm not as worried about that. I like him, but starting at the top, because we'll just go down. But my favorite guys, I love Derrick Henry at running back. I love A.J. Brown as a correlation play on the other side, and just because I'm not playing Jalen Hurts or Ryan Tannehill, but I definitely want a passing target for Philly. Tennessee's really good against the run. One thing about Philly, they knew against Green Bay last week that they had the advantage on the ground. And what'd you see? They just pounded the rock. Jalen Hurts was running all over them. Miles Sanders, all these guys were getting touchdowns on the ground. They knew that against Green Bay. Now it's like the opposite matchup. They're coming into Tennessee. They're coming in. They're going to be probably saying, we have a better advantage, letting that ball air out. A.J. Brown, $7,800. I don't know how much ownership he's going to get, but I don't think it's going to be very high, honestly, at 7,800. And it helps that he really hasn't had a monster game in a few weeks. The last like big game he had was the 42-point game against Pittsburgh, where he caught the 3 touchdowns. But outside of that, it was Detroit in week 1. He's had 2 big fantasy games the entire year, pretty much. Outside of that, his best was 19 against Washington, which is, at 7,800, a dude gets you 19. You're not really that pumped, right? So you want your guy to have big stuff, and he just hasn't done it. So he's not going to project well, which I like. So I'm definitely going to bump him up. I'm going to be heavy on him. Keenan Allen's number 2 for me. You guys talked about it. The targets are going to be there. I think he's going to be open whenever Herbert needs him. Chain mover, just 6,500. And I don't think the ownership is going to be. I don't even think it's going to get steamed. I think it's going to be like wherever it says, like, I don't know, between like 8 and 12%, somewhere in that range. He's going to be, which I'll take all day for Keenan Allen. After that, Jamar Chase, if he's in and he's a full go, I'm in on Jamar Chase. It's a good matchup. Aggressive defense in KC. Like Joe Burrow, going to pair him with Chase. You guys hit on Amon-Ra and Christian Kirk, who I do think will be the 2 more popular pass catchers in that game. And I think there's pivots. Like Zay Jones is the obvious pivot, but he's going to get ownership too. But like Amon-Ra, DJ Chark is $3,800. He was good last week when I watched him. He played 70% or a little over 70% of the snaps. He got 5 targets. He only got 2 catches for like 16 yards and a touchdown. But he had another opportunity for a touchdown earlier. And then Jared Goff missed him wide, running butt naked, wide open on the right side to win the game pretty much. And he just, or maybe not win the game, but to at least get them ahead of the Bills to make it something. And he just missed them, just completely missed them. I don't know if you guys remember that play. It was at the end of the game on the right side, and he was just wide open. Jared Goff just to the right missed him, but he could have easily had a touchdown there. So I think DJ Chark is a really good play. No one's going to play him. He's $3,800. That's a guy that you can throw in as like a final piece if you're stacking that game, or even if you just want a piece of that game, but you want like a lower owned piece. I think him, and then the only receiver that's not going to get much love from the Jaguars, and rightfully so, is Marvin Jones. But I do think he's leveraged off of Zay and Christian Kirk, who are going to get ownership. So I do think from that standpoint against Detroit, he at least makes sense to have in your builds, and especially if you're fading like one or two of those pass catchers that are going to be highly owned. At least you have some leverage there. You don't need a lot to get over on him, but that's just that game. Other guys,
I got one.
You got one. Well, I kind of
Ayuk
scan it out.
Ayuk at 6,100 if Debo's out just seems like a smash to me.
I like Juwan Jennings if Debo's out. Juwan Jennings is $3,200.
Yeah, I can see that too.
That is so cheap for Jennings if Debo's out, because that just opens up his role even more, I think. You're right, though. Ayuk, it opens up his role, too. I would agree there.
And then what about Scary Terry? The Giants are 28th in DVOA versus the pass.
I just can't play him.
I play this guy. I know. I play him too much because I'm just like, I just know there's big play upside with him, but the problem is that their offense stinks.
The problem is Taylor Heineke, he's not – the quality of target is not there. The targets are there, but the quality is not there. Throwing it at his ankles, behind him, whatever. So Terry has to make good catches, but at the same time, the offense just doesn't throw enough, in my opinion, where you're like, you need him to get there early to do it. And I just see this game being kind of slower, like
every Giants game, they just
20 to 17 type game. And that's not the game on this slate that I want to have much exposure to outside of like a super cheap guy. And he's just, I don't know, 5,800 to me. I like other guys kind of.
Yeah, like Christian Watson seems like such a better play if Dobbs is maybe not. I mean, Scary Terry is the wide receiver one, though. That's the thing to
Yeah, he is just on an offense that doesn't even like to pass it 30 times. That's like I struggle with it.
Yeah, I hear you. Good point. All right. Any final gems in there? George Pickens. Can I interest anybody in?
I like your game.
I like your chart call. I agree. He looked pretty like when I saw him playing in the beginning of the game on Thanksgiving, I was like, oh, he looks good. Like this was a mistake not to play DJ Shark at 3,800 or whatever the heck he was.
Yeah, is that game in Atlanta? That Pickens game.
What's up?
Is that in Atlanta? The Pittsburgh game.
Yeah.
I would have interest in Pickens.
And a little dome action.
Yeah.
Low ownership, 5,100.
I think even if you don't play Justin Fields, if you think that there's less running for him, the other thing is he might stand in the pocket a little more and try and throw it down the field. So a guy like Claypool might be more in play at 3,800 with no Mooney. Byron Pringle got more snaps than I thought last game. He was out there for over half the snaps. But I do think Claypool makes some sense if you think like Fields kind of tries to air it out a little more and sit back in the pocket. He might be a guy that we're kind of overlooking that.
Yeah, I'm on board there. I'm writing that down.
Who was it?
Claypool.
Yeah.
I just forgot. I like too many people.
I think we've had a pretty good. Like we haven't recommended a ton of people. You know what I mean?
I think it's a pretty good show. I think you want to know what it is. We're not doing it at midnight like always.
I like that. I was just thinking that in my head. I really like this time slot.
We feel fresher. You know what I mean?
I think this is
JSU's probably already done 50 burpees at home. And,
this is my second coffee, and it's only like almost.
Kid ran a marathon earlier.
I feel good right now. I'm not gonna lie. I feel whenever I get my coffee intake in early, I feel good. So that's the key with me. At night, the coffee's worn out. You know what I mean? I'm worn down by the time the night hits. So I do like the mornings. We'll say.
And you got the digestion going from that buffalo chicken sub. It's just a big.
I didn't get it yesterday, Kirkwood. I couldn't get it because I took the wife out and we went to with her friend and her boyfriend. We went out to Bocado, which was
get some tapas.
Yeah, some tapas. I'd never been either, so it was cool.
Nice. All right, tight end. This gets a little interesting because we want to play Travis Kelce. Right, like he's ridiculous, 7,900. But he's also expensive and hard to get. So other guys that are going to get ownership are going to be like Freiermuth, going to be Foster Moreau, going to be Tyler Conklin, maybe Hayden Hurst, maybe Mark Andrews for sure. What are we thinking here? What are we doing?
I think Harrison Bryant's going to end up being the chalk at 2,700 for what it's worth.
Yeah, really? I think Freiermuth, Harrison Bryant, maybe Foster Moreau. Like those are probably the three highest owned tight ends. And then after that, you'll see Kelce and
Kittle's
the rest
5K?
in order.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's kind of been around 5K but yeah.
He's another guy that's a good play. Like if Debo's out, I think he's a better
With
play.
Debo
It's
out,
a good matchup.
That price is more like I like.
It's a good matchup too against Miami. Like look at what happened. So Houston was terrible, and we're talking about tight end. So I will bring this up because I do think he's in play as a cheap guy. But one thing that Kyle Allen did do, and they did kind of go after, was the tight end. And Jordan Akins wasn't great either. For fantasy, he was, though. He had a nice fantasy game. He had 16 fantasy points. He was 5 of 5. He obviously had that fumble. When you guys remember, they clocked him after that catch, and he dropped it. But he was good, and he had the touchdown at the end, obviously. But 2,900 for him. I do think Miami's exploitable against the tight end too. So I could see a big Kittle game. It's probably why I'll have less Ayuk too. I think I like Kittle a little bit more if Debo's out.
Yeah, give me a 5K. Let's go.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Harrison Bryant. I mean, okay, I get it. And Njoku's out. He's cheap, right? He's playing Houston. Houston, they've given up the 13th most fantasy points per game to the tight end. But, he also has pretty good competition in Chubb, Hunt, Amari Cooper. And this is a game that they should be controlling. So, how much work are they really going to need out of this guy? I get it. He's 2,700, but he's also coming in, at 15 to 20% ownership.
Well, I think he's going to be out on the field a ton. I mean, whether he gets targeted a lot, I don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson's gone to the I could see him getting some targets here. I don't think he's a terrible play. I do think Deshaun Watson isn't a great play, though. I will say we didn't really talk about him that much, but I don't like him if he's getting ownership. I just think that the guy coming off, he hasn't played in a while.
I don't know how you play him.
Yeah, I just think it's a terrible play. It's such a terrible play at 6,500.
My thought is that we should be trying to bury Harrison Bryant. We should be trying to get a massive Kittle game, a massive Kelce game, or a massive Mark Andrews game even, or something,
Yeah. I mean, there's other cheap tight ends, though, too. Foster Moreau's 3,600. I think he's a good play. Hayden Hurst in your double stacks with Burrow, I think, is fine. He got 9 targets last game. I think those are good plays. I think I'm fine, going elsewhere. I don't need to play Harrison Bryant, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna keep him in the pool. I won't say he's not in play.
I don't hate Conklin at 3-1.
Yeah, he's another guy going up against his old team too, right? He was from Minnesota, I think he played for Minnesota.
All right, I'm in. A little revenge. I can't say no to revenge.
Turn down the revenge.
Can't turn down revenge.
Cole Kmet. All right.
Kmet. I think Kmet's fine. Yeah. Green Bay.
Yeah, Komet's fine. They have less. I mean, Darnell Mooney out. He's been he was used with Fields a good
If
amount.
the shoulder's an issue too, it's a short area target.
Yeah, he makes sense.
All
Won't
right,
get ownership either, Kirkwood.
And Gerald Everett.
Green Bay is not great against tight ends.
No one's going to play Everett. He's overpriced.
He's overpriced, yeah.
What's his price?
4,400.
Yeah.
He was 46 last week, and people played him.
Everyone's going to play Freiermuth in that range. Everyone's going to play Freiermuth at 4,300 over Everett in that range.
That's Freiermuth.
All right, Bobby. Take it home. DST.
Yeah. Cleveland Browns going to be my leverage defense. If Pierce kind of kicks up his chalk, 3,900, you can pair him with Chubb if you want. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but yeah, I don't mind the Browns. I also don't mind the Texans. Like, if people are actually going to play Deshaun Watson, at the Texans defense at 2,300 makes a ton of sense, just because what do we really know about Watson at this point? Like, he hasn't played in so long,
But he can hand it off to Nick Chubb.
He can do that. He can, but the Texans are 2,300. So, and I think they're at home, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they are. They're at home.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are my.
I like it. I like it, Bob. I'm good with those defenses. I have them
Jets.
in my list of 5. I do a player pool, so they're 2 of my defenses.
You only play 5. I only play 5 too usually.
5 defenses, yeah. Every week I'll play 5, and they're 2 of my defenses. But I do have the 49ers ahead of them. I really like the 49ers defense, 3,100.
Just list out the 5. Just give the whole 5.
I'll give them all. And so the Ravens are 1. I think the Ravens just demolish Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
At home too. Steelers, 49ers, Browns, Texans in that order. Steelers are just too cheap, even in Atlanta. I think they're just 2,600 for that defense. That's getting healthy. Walk back, Mika back, all those guys. I think that's just really too cheap. And then I talked about Tua without the tackle. And if Armstead, their left tackle, is going to be out, I think the 49ers defense is in for a really good spot here and could get a bunch of sacks with Tua. And it's just something where, Tua just keeps getting crushed, and eventually, the guy's going to go out again with an injury. I mean, last week, the Texans contorted him in ways I didn't even think were humanly possible. Did you guys see some of those sacks where he's just I don't even know how he does it, too.
Yeah, I know that one where they, dragged him down. It looked like it was, WWE.
Yeah, it's just crazy how he gets into those situations game in and game. I feel like every game he gets at least one of those sacks where it just looks –
yeah, you're
so
uh-oh. You see it coming, you're uh-oh. All right, what about the Commanders against the Giants?
They were in my thought process, but I ruled them out of my 5. But I don't mind. I don't mind it. And then
the Jets are still cheap, 2,600. I know Minnesota's good, but
yeah,
I like those 2 calls. Commander, Daniel Jones, and then Kirk Cousins. Jets D's been getting takeaways, I like it.
All right, let's do it. Final stacks here for single entry large field. I'm going to start it off. Just get it out of the way. You know where I'm going. And you know what? It's fine if we're all going the same place this week, because I feel like that's at least we can go down as a show. We can all crush together or not. But it's going to be Herbert. And I got to figure out, I want to play Keenan Allen. I want to get Eckler in there if I can. I don't know if I can, but there's just so many ways to play this game. There's Devontae Adams. There's Josh Jacobs bringing it back. So I'm going to go Herbert to Keenan Allen as my number 1 stack. And, I guess I'm going to bring it back with Jacobs, but maybe do Devontae Adams. I don't know. It's tough, but that's the game I'm focusing in on. Boys.
JSU, you go because you talked up Herbert a good bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go away from it. That's my favorite stack. I love Keenan too. I'm right with Kirkwood. I think like a Herbert double stack with Herbert, Keenan, and then one other Chargers guy receiving option. And then you bring it back with like Jacobs, Moreau, or something like that. And then just, finish out your teams however you want. I will say, just to give like a little bit of a contrarian take, but I think that A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry are the two highest scoring at their position. I'll just throw that in there to add to the final takes here for this slate, because I do think A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry both crush, and I think there's points in that game, which is good. I think that game goes over the total, and we see a good game.
All right, I'm hoping Bobby says the guy that I'm thinking in my head right now.
I like Herbert also, but I like him with Joshua Palmer.
No, I was saying, come on, Bobby, do Jimmy G.
Oh no, Jimmy G is good, but he made a good point. I worry about, like when he said the 49ers D, you take away arm. Like I worry about Tua, but that game just with the how condensed it is. Like I like it for secondaries. I think you can make a case for getting like McCaffrey or Waddle, stuff like that. That's pretty much what I was thinking for that. I don't hate Jimmy G that he's like connected to McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey could have a big week.
All right. Is that a wrap, boys?
That's a wrap. I like it. I think we're in a good
Are we going to
spot.
continue this time slot, the 10?
Bobby really likes this time slot. We might have to. If we ship this week, Bob, we definitely have to.
I think we have to anyway, because like I'm pretty much booked up till 3 now every Friday.
Yeah.
And I know JSU is like your schedule is like before 3. And then
Friday's just insane for me because all the stuff I got.
It took us 13 weeks to figure this out, but we finally.
That's all right.
So it'll either be. I mean, this was probably a better show than our last week's show, so we'll see. So
this show is a banger. We're gonna ship this week. I feel good about this.
I feel good about this show too.
Good mojo.
I feel good about this week. I think we're coming in hot.
All right, let's get it, boys, and everybody listening. Let's get it. Comment, tell us your thoughts, tell us our bad takes, good takes, whatever. Just comment below.
Make fun of us, whatever you want to do.
We got UFC electric day today. We got UFC tonight. Let me pull up quickly because I'm about to take my drive over to New Hampshire if I can get free for a bit to place a couple of wagers. I do have some plays. Hold on, I got to pull it up. All right. I'm definitely taking Phillip Rowe. He is a slight dog to Nico Price. Anywhere from I guess the line's just moved, so I'm getting a bad line now at this point because I haven't gone. It was 115 earlier. It's like 105 right now, plus 105. But I like him to beat Nico Price.
Wait, who was it? Who was it? You
Phil Rowe, the Fresh
Phil
Prince.
Rowe. Okay,
the Fresh Prince. Other than that, I also think that Ty Tuivasa is too big of a price here. He's plus 180. This guy almost just beat Cyril Gahn. It's like basically with he doesn't have a ground game, but Pavlovich is not going to use like the ground game. This is going to be like a banger, like a boxing. They're just going to bang. And what he does is he makes he's like Michael Chandler. It's going to be like a 50-50 coin flip, and you're getting plus 180. Like you're going to get like. It's going to be like 50-50 who knocks who out in this because they're not going to wrestle. If he wrestles, he'd be a big. If Pavlovich wrestles, he'd be Tuivasa would be a big dog, but it's not going to happen. And they're gonna bang. And if they're banging, I say it's 50-50. So give me the plus 180 all day on Ty Tuivasa. Plus, if he wins, you get that extra equity of doing a shoey. I mean, it's electric. The whole thing is
the
electric.
shoey is great. I do love too that people do it like in the stands after. Like that's badass when you can get a guy just take off his shoe, dump a beer in it, and drink it. Like you did that, buddy. That's pretty cool.
Those are my two favorite. I'll probably play Kevin Holland. I don't really like the price. I'm not sure. I don't know. There are some live dogs though, up and down. I'm not going heavy this slate. I did like the one where I swept the board a couple of weeks. The last main slate. It was I went heavy there. This one I'm lighter, but I like overall. This is a really competitive card. So let's get some UFC in tonight. The thing is, it's going to go forever. It's not starting until 7:00, and then there's like more fights than there ever been. So it's going to be late.
That's perfect for me. It'll be right when I get back from dinner. I'll be ready to put the UFC on, play some hoops, sit back, watch some winners.
And then we got problem is it screws me up for having to with Bobby and I do the show and the Grinders Live that people should be watching on RG in the morning if they're not watching the Run Pure, whatever you guys got going on, but. Either way, we got you covered. Some of our best takes just come to us tomorrow morning, and some of our worst takes come afterwards, like the Michael Carter.
That's the DFS trap right there. I will just say before we get out of here, I just want to shout out my guys. Big T in the college football championship today, which is Saturday because we're recording this early on Saturday. Good luck to him in that. My boys Tambo and Kay Fallick at the King of the Beach. This weekend. So Sunday, hopefully one of those two guys ships King of the Beach tomorrow and takes that first place home. I know Tambo's been close the last few years. I think he's been second.
Of course he's going to ship. Like so Tambo.
It's got to be first place for Tambo or bust. Like it has to be.
It has to
Tambo
be.
First or last, buddy. First or last. That's how we take it down. He knows.
Dan Bach's out there too, so good luck to Dan Bach.
Oh, shout out Dan Bach. Yeah. Does he got a seat in the King of the Beach?
Yeah, he's there. He's there.
I think he has two.
I don't know. I don't even know what the King of the Beach is. I've never entered a King of the Beach. Like
Actually, that was when I met Dan Bach years ago. That was how I met Dan Bach, was actually at the King of the Beach. I'm pretty sure that was the first time I ever met him.
I rarely play qualifiers.
I think it was the first one they ran too. It was like the first one they ever ran, which was the one I won and went to, and he was there. And that was how I actually got started. So yeah, shout out Dan Bach. I hope Dan ships. If my guys don't ship, I hope Dan ships. I love Dan.
Look at that. Hour 47 minutes. Sorry about the length this week. Watch it at 1.5x.
Don't say sorry for greatness. What do you mean? This was a great podcast. What are you talking about? Don't say sorry. Don't apologize.
All right, you're right. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome for the hour and 45 minutes of great content by
Kirkwood, you need that energy to get up here a little bit when you tell people you're not sorry. I need that energy up.
All right, I'm not sorry. You're welcome. You are welcome. All right, let's ship. Let's make some money. We got banger of a day here. USA lost. I was going to slam against them, but then that flu worried me. But I'm driving UFC tonight. We're shipping football tomorrow, shipping showdown in the nighttime. Let's do it. Big weeks for everybody, for all the listeners, for us, for JSU Rab, for Bobby Gomes. This has been the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast. Run Pure Sports collaboration, week 13, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks.